Hello, this is the luckiest maths teacher in the world. Thank you so much for tuning into this video in which we'll look at frequency tables and the range. Specifically, we're going to look at how to use frequency tables like this to calculate the mean, median, mode, and we're also going to go through the range. So this here is a frequency table. So it's got two columns that I filled in here. So this column, which I call X, gives us a score, some data. And this column here is frequency. So frequency is how many times the score occurs. So let's say this is the data from one of our weekly quizzes, which are scored out of 10. So the way we read this table, 2 people scored 5, 4 people scored 6, 8 people scored 7, and so on. This is what a frequency table looks like. So we're going to use this to calculate the mean, median, mode, and range. So what I'm going to do first, though, is I'm going to add up this column. 2 plus 4 plus 8 plus 11 plus 9 plus 6 is equal to 40. So we write this little symbol here means sum of. So if I write this, it means sum of F, the sum of the frequencies equals 40. This is how many people took the quiz. So that will help us calculate the mean, median, mode, and range. So let's start off with the range because we didn't go through that in the last video. So the range is the highest score subtract the lowest score. So the range is different to the mean, median, and mode. The range is a measure of spread. So remember in the last video, I told you that the mean, median, and mode were all measures of central tendency. We discussed that that means the mean, median, mode, the point of them is to try and tell you about the center of the data. What's a typical or an average score? The range, however, is not a measure of central tendency. It's not there to tell you what the middle of the data is. It tells you how spread out the data is. The larger the range, the more spread out the scores. So let's say we had a test. If you had a really low range, that means everyone in the class scored about the same. If you had a high range, it's talking about there was a big difference between the top and the bottom score. So back to our frequency table here. So the range is the highest score minus the lowest score. So some people when they're looking at a table like this, they think that this is the highest score. Remember, this column is scores. The highest score here is obviously 10 in the quiz. The lowest score is 5. So in our data here, the range is 10 minus 5, which is equal to 5. The range being 5 means the top person scored 5 more points than the bottom person. Okay, so let's now use this frequency table to calculate the mean, median, and mode. So we're going to start with the mode. Now, we went through this last time. The mode is the most common score. So it's the score that occurs the most, the score that occurs with the highest frequency. So here we can see the score of 8 occurred 11 times. So the mode is not 11, the mode is 8. 8 is the score that occurred the most times. It occurred 11 times, which is more than any of these other scores. So the mode of this data is 8. So we're now going to calculate the median using this. So the median is the middle score. If there is an even number of scores, remember there are 2 middle scores. So there are 40 scores here. The frequency is 40. So there is an even number of scores, so there will be 2 middle scores. So there's a quick way you can figure out which score gives you the median, and that is using the formula n plus 1 on 2. Now, n plus 1 on 2 doesn't tell you what the median is. It tells you which score is the median. So as we discussed in the previous video, n is the number of scores. Okay, so when we have 40 scores, n is 40. If I put 40 into this formula here, n plus 1 on 2, I get 40 plus 1 on 2. And if you put that on your calculator, you get 20.5. So what does it mean, 20.5? How does that help us here? Well, the median's clearly not 20.5 because the scores were 5 to 10. We can't have a median that's more than the highest score. can't be the middle score. This tells us which score is the median. So 20.5 means that the two middle scores are the 20th score and the 21st score. So the median is going to be the average of these two scores. I add them up and divide by 2. So the first two scores were 5. Then the next 4 were 6. So there were 9 scores that are less than or equal to 6. Then we add 8. So we're up to 17. There are 17 scores of 7 or less. So the 18th, 19th, 20th, 21st, 22nd, all the way up to the 28th score is 8. So the 20th score is 8, the 21st score is 8. That means here that the median is also 8. So this formula here can help you find which is the middle score. Now, you don't have to use it. If you don't want to use it, that's fine. You just need another way of finding the middle score. So remember, the median is the point in the data where there are the same number of scores above and below that score. So 440, the middle of that is like 20. So we want to have a situation where there are 20 scores below and 20 scores above. All right, let's now go on to the mean. So to do the mean, we don't want to add up every score individually. That would take forever. I'd have to go 5 plus 5 plus 6 plus 6 plus 6 plus 6. I'd have to add up 6 4 times. I'd have to add up 7 8 times. It'd just take forever. So what we're going to do to calculate the mean is we're going to create this column f times x. We're going to multiply each score by its frequency. So 5 times 2 is 10, 6 times 4, 24, 7 times 8 is 56, 8 times 11, 9 times 9, and 10 times 6. So the reason I did this is a quick way of adding things up. Instead of going 5 plus 5, I can just go 5 times 2. Instead of going 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 8 11 times, I can just go 8 times 11. Now I'm going to add up this column here. So if I add up all of these scores, I get 319. So I'm going to say the sum of the fx is 319. That number 319 is the sum of all the scores. I would have got the same number if I went 5 plus 5 plus 6 plus 6 plus 6 plus 6 and so on. But I just got to it a lot quicker. The sum of all the scores is 319, and there are 40 scores. We know from the last video, the mean is the sum of all the scores, which is the sum of the fx column, over the total number of scores. It's just 319 over 40. So in this case, it will give us 7.975. That is the mean. So much easier to calculate using this table rather than going through and adding up each score individually. All right, thank you so much for tuning into this video. This has been the luckiest maths teacher in the world. Have a great day.